Good evening, everyone. My name is Whitney Penn. I want to welcome you to the housing contract webinar for the 2024-2025 academic year. I'm going to share my screen, and we have people who are joining us here on Facebook as well. So I'm pulling that up, giving them a little bit of time to head over to Facebook if needed. But we wanted to start off with some introductions for you to let you know who's going to be talking with you throughout the contract webinar, or who you may have contact with at some point in this process as you start exploring housing. So as I said at the beginning, my name is Whitney Penn. I am the Assistant Director for Student Recruitment, Marketing, and Communications here in Housing and Dining Services. So I will be speaking for the presentation portion of the webinar. And then Kathy Van Steenis, who's the Assistant Director for Contracts and Occupancy Management, is going to be doing a live demonstration of the housing contract process. So she will be joining us. And then Olivia Mungy, she's going to be joining us. She may say something during the presentation, so you may hear her voice. She is the Residence Hall Occupancy Coordinator, and you may end up talking with her at some point in your process. So we just wanted to give you an introduction so you know who you could expect to hear from potentially this evening or as we move forward. So I think we've given a little bit of time. I'm going to jump into what you can expect for us to cover for this evening. So let me make sure we can advance here. So we're going to be talking about a variety of topics. One of the first things that I'm going to start with is talking about our first year residency requirement and what is involved in that, the exemption process, information that you may need to know. And then a fairly large focus is going to be on our housing process and the timeline for that housing process, essentially from now to the spring semester. We're going to talk about residential CAT communities. I will introduce and give you more information about what a CAT community is and talk about specialty housing options. We're going to go over meal plans and dining dollars and roommate selection, and these different pieces. So for example, the CAT communities, meal plans, this is all going to be in the housing contract, and then Kathy is going to do that live demonstration to actually walk you through that contract. And then we'll end with a question and answer or Q&A session at the end to be able to talk through different questions that you have. I do want to note though that there is a Q&A function if you're joining us on Zoom. If you are joining us on Facebook Live, we want you to be able to submit your questions throughout this entire webinar. So if you're joining us on Zoom, submit your questions through that Q&A feature. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, you can just add a comment to that video, and we have a full team behind the scenes who's going to be able to answer your questions throughout the presentation as we're talking about different information. And I just wanted to highlight that this is the housing contract webinar. So there may be times that you ask questions that are kind of more related to either room selection or move-in, and we may direct you to learn more about those questions when we have our room selection and move-in webinars in both April and July. So right now we really want to focus on that housing contract and get you through that step, and then we can move on to those pieces afterwards. This webinar is being recorded, so we are going to be posting it to our website following this evening, so sometime this week following the presentation. And we are going to email the recording of this link to anyone who registered for tonight's webinar, as well as those who are unable to join us or unable to register for the webinar. So everyone will be able to get a copy of this, so you can either refer to it later. If you have to leave for any reason throughout the evening, you'll be able to reference that later on. So we will have that available for you. Now that we've gone over everything for the webinar and what to expect related to that, I'm going to jump into our first year residency requirement. So there's a lot of different information on here. The important thing to know is that on the Manhattan campus, first year students are required to live on campus for their first 2 semesters. And so within that, though, there are select exemption categories that students could potentially apply for. So we've linked this information here. We're going to also put a link in the chat for this so that you can have the link that way as well. But if you would like to look at what those exemption categories are because you believe that you may potentially be able to apply for one of those, you'll visit our first year living website. So if you either scan the QR code on the right-hand side here or put that link into your browser, or we're going to drop that link into the chat for you so you can access that. That will take you to this first year residency website, which will give you more information about those exemption categories. And I wanted to note that housing and dining services is the sole source of those exemptions. So when you submit, if you are going to submit potentially an exemption request, the response for that is going to come from housing. So if you've talked with other departments who have mentioned this to you before, please note that any information that's being given to you about that exemption or that exemption request is going to come from housing specifically. So just to highlight what some of those common exemptions may be, if you are thinking about or you will be living with a fraternity or other approved off-campus housing, so examples of that would be Smith House, or other similar communities off campus. If you may be a commuting student who's living within a 40-mile radius of Manhattan, that may be an exemption category, or a non-traditional student living kind of experience. So for example, if you graduated more than 12 months before the start of the 2024 fall semester, then that may be an exemption category that you could apply for. So there are other exemption categories. Visit that website if you would like more information. Again, though, we do have that residency requirement for students to live on campus for the first 2 semesters. And we implemented that requirement because on-campus residency or students living on campus is proven to increase student retention and academic success. And we know that it's a huge investment, both of your time and your money, to be here on campus and at K-State. So we want to make sure we're supporting you through that. All right, to our housing process and timeline. So everything related to our housing process, for the most part, with the exception of one step on here, is going to happen through the resident portal. The resident portal is essentially your housing account, and you're able to, like I said, complete any of these steps within that resident portal as they become available. So again, you can scan the QR code here on the left-hand side, or you can put that link into your browser, or we're going to drop that link into the chat for you as well. And I'm going to explain how this works as I explain more about the process. So as of right now, there's an optional step that's open for you, and that is to submit your housing information request form that opened back on September 15th. The step that we're talking about tonight is this first step, that's completing your residence hall housing contract, but I want you to see how the steps all relate to each other. So the important thing for you to know about the housing contract, if you don't already, is that on December 7th at 3:00 p.m. Central Time, the contract goes live. The exemption request forms for that first year residency requirement also open, and you will be able to submit your contract. When you submit that housing contract, you'll submit a $230 payment as well. $200 of that $230 is refundable until June 1st. And why that may be helpful or important for you is because, as you can see in this yellow oval here on the bottom right-hand side, the date and time that you submit both your contract and payment determine the date and time that you are going to select your room, which is step 3 of this process, in late spring. So essentially, the earlier you do your contract, the further up in the line that you're going to be able to select your room based on what's available in the spring. And I'll highlight that a little bit more as we go forward. So why that may relate to you is if you're still considering different options and haven't decided for sure on K-State as being the college that you're going to attend, you can still submit that housing contract and get in line for that room selection date and time, but still be able to get that refund if, for example, you decide that you are no longer attending K-State and would like to go somewhere else. So that is an important thing to know because we're going to be able to give, you have some flexibility there with that housing contract to be able to get in, but make a decision later on as well. So step 2, I want to highlight this because step 2 doesn't necessarily involve logging into the resident portal and taking specific action, like completing the residence hall housing contract. However, step 2 is the time period in which you're going to explore the different options that you have available for on-campus living. So we have a tool that's called the Explore Your Options tool. It's on our website. You can look at that to see different rooms and different buildings that are available. And then February through April, we're also going to feature every single one of our buildings and communities on our Housing and Dining Services Facebook and Instagram channels. We'll be able to essentially give you insight through that into what each of those communities is like and why you may choose one community over another. You essentially will then build that list, that preference list on your own during this exploration phase. And then going into step 3, which is very different from potentially how if you're a support person of a student may have experienced this or other institutions may do it. Within the residence hall housing contract, you are not going to preference any specific building or a specific room potentially. So what's going to happen though is this step 3 on the top right side there, you will actually go in and choose your room based on what's available when room selection opens for you. So essentially, step 2 is building that preference list for yourself so you have some options available when you go in and select your room. For residential CAT community students, which again, I will highlight and give more information about here soon, that opens in mid-April. And then early to kind of later May, depending on when you submit your housing contract and payment, general room selection begins. And you'll know more in April, at the beginning of April, specifically when your room selection date and time have been assigned. So there's that full process of going from the housing contract, submitting that contract and payment, determining once that's done, exploring your different options on campus, and then in late spring, selecting your room based on the date and time that you are assigned for room selection. All right, so now to highlight what residential CAT communities are. So there are a couple different things we're going to look at for this. As I mentioned on the last slide, students who are part of a residential CAT community will actually be able to select their room earlier. And what a residential CAT community is it offers students the opportunity to live in the same residence hall or the same community, so larger residence hall community, as others who are part of that community, and to take a group of classes together with a peer mentor who is called a residential learning assistant. So they both live in the hall or community and are a peer mentor within one of the courses that the students take together. So the infographic on the right-hand side shows you an example of one of those CAT communities. So in this particular instance, the CAT community is called Hope and Resilience Through Fandom. So you can see the 3 courses are the 2 3-credit hours and the 1 credit hour. Those are the 3 courses that students take together. And then there's a 1 credit hour course that is just for that community. Residential CAT communities are limited to a maximum of 22 residents. And essentially, it makes a larger community within the larger residence hall. a smaller community. So you're getting to know approximately 22 students, or maybe less, depending on the CAT community. And you can join based on your shared area of interest or potentially your shared area of study. So the Hope and Resilience Through Fandom is an example of a shared interest area. But there are others available as well. So some residential CAT community examples include First in the Family, that's specifically in Haymaker Hall. That's for students who are first generation students. So for their first in the family to come to college. Excuse me. Hope and Resilience Through Fandom. Find Your Fit, which is kind of exploring different career paths and what you may want to pursue throughout your academic and professional career. There's also Architecture, Planning, and Design, or AP Design, as a several different options for CAT communities, as well as a pre-med CAT community. So these are the different options that you may have available. If you scan the QR code here in the middle, this will take you to a full list of the residential CAT communities. You can also take down this link and put that in your browser, and we'll drop it in the chat for you as well. But I want to highlight here, oops, there we go, why joining a CAT community may be beneficial for you. So I'm going to play this video for you so that you can get a sense of what a CAT community is, why you may want to be a part of it, and why they may be an important part of your experience here at K-State.
Being in the CAT community my first year has helped me really kind of hit the ground running. It showed me a lot of how to function at Kansas State University, and I don't think I would have really learned as quickly as I needed to if I weren't in this CAT community.
It reminded me that education can be fun. It was so much easier to feel excited to go to class because I got to go to my CAT community class, and it just was so electrifying.
I think every CAT community has some aspect of that where it's going to help you learn a lot about the academics that you're specifically interested in, which is great that there's so many different CAT communities, because no matter what you're interested in, there's something for you.
I was also able to make connections with these students in other majors, as well as kind of learn the ins and outs of college in general. And it helped me to succeed.
And if you don't join a CAT community, you lose out on so much fun you could have your freshman year.
Coming into this CAT community was really beneficial for me, and I think it put me ahead of a lot of the students who weren't in CAT communities.
It's kind of hard to imagine not ever being in a CAT community because it has impacted my life so much.
Here we go. So you will have the opportunity to select or to indicate potential interest in joining a residential CAT community within the housing contract, and Kathy's going to demonstrate in the live demonstration where that is going to be. The other thing that you're able to indicate interest in within the housing contract is potential interest in either the honors housing or the Smurthwaite Scholarship and Leadership House, which are specialty housing options. So we're excited because we are going to be reopening the Strong community, specifically Putnam and Van Zyl halls, for the fall 2024 semester for currently students who are accepted into the University Honors Program, and moving what used to be the Honors House, or what currently is the Honors House, into Putnam and Van Zyl halls. And essentially, if you join the Honors Housing community, it's going to be a community that focuses on community development and academic success. And you're going to be able to, in Putnam and Van Zyl halls, be within a very historic and unique community space, and growing community space. And there are going to be renovations and other things that are going to be happening in those spaces over the next couple of years that are going to be really exciting to be a part of. There is an additional application that's required to be part of that community, and that's going to open on December 7th with the housing contract as well. The Smurthwaite Scholarship and Leadership House. Oh, I do want to mention the honors housing is co-ed, so that's open for essentially any students to apply and be a part of. The Smurthwaite Scholarship and Leadership House is an all-female identifying house that houses up to 45 residents. It's essentially set up as a cooperative living environment. So there are some light cleaning duties and other requirements like philanthropy hours, volunteer hours, things like that, that residents have to complete. And essentially the community is focused on 5 different pillars. So there's leadership, scholarship, service, friendship, and equity. Like honors housing, it requires an additional application as well as kind of a more relaxed interview process. So not like a job interview, but an interview process to talk through essentially what are your goals in living within the community and what would you like to get out of that. That does as well open on December 7th, and there will be links to those applications once you complete that housing contract, or they'll be available on our website. So those are 2 different housing options that you can indicate interest in, again, in that housing contract. So one of the other things that you're going to indicate and complete within the housing contract is for everyone who's living in the residence halls, you will have to select a meal plan. And so the 2 different meal plan options that we provide are the all access meal plan and the weekly 12. So the all access meal plan gives you unlimited in-person meals per week, as well as 5 on the go meals, 5 guest passes per semester, and you can see the cost there at the bottom. The weekly 12 meal plan gives you any combination of 12 in-person or on-the-go meals per week, 2 guest passes per semester, and then the comparative cost there at the bottom. The weekly 12 meal plan does reset every Friday, and it does not roll over week to week. So if you only use 10 out of your 12 meal swipes for the week, that's not going to roll over into the next week, those 2 that you didn't use that week. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking through which meal plan you would like to pursue. There are additional meal plan options available for students who may be living in Jardine, who may be a transfer student, or who may be living off campus. So if you're approved to live, for example, in a fraternity, there are meal plan options available for you in the dining centers if you would like to purchase one. And you can find more information about those on our website. For Jardine residents, those are optional. Again, for students living in the residence halls, you will have to make a selection for that meal plan. So if you're doing the housing contract, you are going to be living in the residence halls. There is also a program that we have that's called Dining Dollars. Dining Dollars are essentially an optional supplement to your all access or weekly 12 meal plan. Or if you're an off-campus or Jardine student, you may be able to just purchase Dining Dollars without even purchasing a meal plan. But essentially, Dining Dollars you can add to your student account. It's billed to what's called your CASA student account, which is on the right-hand side there. And you can use Dining Dollars at any of our housing and dining retail locations, participating student union restaurants, and then also you can even just purchase a cash meal price in one of the dining centers. If, for example, you want to eat 13 instead of 12 meals in 1 week, you can use your Dining Dollars for that as well. Dining Dollars essentially operate similarly to, for example, maybe a debit card. So you're going to put a certain number of certain amount of Dining Dollars that you have available. You access those through your ID card. And again, you can use that at any of those locations. Just to give you an example, some of our retail locations, we have coffee shops, we have convenience stores. We also have a couple of different restaurants on campus that are owned by Housing and Dining Services, so you can use those in those locations. All right, and the last thing before we get into the live demo, we want to talk about roommate selection. So there are several different ways that you can preference a roommate within your housing contract. So the first is through the preferred or confirmed roommate process. So for example, essentially within this process, all the people who are interested in living together enter your WID, your Wildcat ID number, or your student ID number into the housing contract, which again, Kathy will show you. You enter that into the contract. you preference each other, and then you move forward. So either that can be you come in knowing one or more people that you would like to live with, or you can use what's called RoomSync, which is our roommate matching app. You log into RoomSync for the first time through the resident portal, again, through that housing account, and you will develop a profile. You can start as early as now developing that profile. However, it's probably good for you to note that there are going to be more profiles created in February or March timeframe. So if you're not seeing someone now that you're matching with, maybe check back in kind of at the beginning of the spring semester or so, or middle of the spring semester, to see if there's more if there are more profiles that you may be able to match with. So if you find someone on that roommate matching app, then you essentially enter each other's information into the contract, similarly to if you know someone coming in. Then we also have our random or potluck style. So there are two different ways that you could do this. So you could first choose an open space with somebody already in a room. So for example, if it's a 2-person room, there's one person already in there, you fill the other space. Or you see an open room, you choose one of the spaces, and then another student selects the other space. So there are those two different methods. It's important to note, though, that you do not need to have a roommate selected to complete the housing contract. So if you have not yet found a roommate, or you're going to use the random and potluck style, then you don't need to enter any roommate information into the housing contract. Or if after completing the housing contract you do find a roommate, you can go back and edit that portion of your contract to add them in as a roommate. So important information to know, so that you're not feeling like you're not there yet, you're not sure who you're living with, you can still do that housing contract. All right, so we're going to transition into Kathy sharing the housing contract demo. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I will let her jump on.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're really excited that you're here. So what we're going to do is we are just going to walk through a sample contract. And just so you know, along with this webinar, we're also going to have a PowerPoint, and it's going to show every single screen that we're going to show you tonight. So if you would like to review it later on before you do the contract, we would definitely recommend that. As we always say, on December 7th, when the contract goes live, seconds are going to count, and we understand that. So what we wanted to emphasize here is take the time now to definitely review the terms and conditions of this contract. It is a legally binding contract. We don't want you to sign anything that you're not aware of on those. But then you can also just review where you're going to need to click so that you can click quickly and get through that process. So on the resident portal, which is on our Housing and Dining Services homepage, on December 7th, between noon and 5 p.m., when you log in, this is a screen that you're going to see right here. It's a simplified version, and that's very intentional to just help people get through the process much quicker on December 7th. So as a student or an incoming student, you're going to click on this residential contract.
Kathy, can you try sharing that one more time?
Absolutely. Are you seeing it now?
Yep.
Okay. You're seeing the residential contract one? Okay, I apologize. So let's just go back to the home page, make sure that I know what's going on there. Okay, so on December 7th, you're going to see this simplified version of that contract. We're going to hit complete on, or complete the contract. We're going to hit continue to the contract. We're going to ask you to enter in some basic personal information, contact information. We'll ask for your cell phone, and we'll ask for your cell phone provider. That's the cell phone company. Sometimes people will put mom or dad or myself. That's not helpful to us, unfortunately. So it's AT&T or Verizon. We're looking for the cell phone company there. Parent and guardian email, if you want us to be sending you information about the contract or the processes, this is really helpful to put in, as well as a phone number. You'll enter information about the international student status, your home address, and then you'll want to click your class and your major and academic status. I just also want to clarify this step right here is our request for information form. You can do that now. So if you have not done it yet, please go in and do it now. This helps you verify that you have the right EID, that you know your password, and on the day when we open on December 7th, this will save you a step and you'll just be a lot faster through the process. So go ahead and do that. Here's the second step to that contract. So we do have university break periods. So fall break, Thanksgiving week, winter break is between the end of the fall semester and the beginning of the spring semester, and then the spring break. Break housing is not required. If you're not sure if you want it, you can add it at any point before the break begins. So you are welcome to select any of those of your choice. Whitney talked to you about the residential CAT community options. This is where you're going to see that information. It will be in this format here. If you click yes, it will drop down. You'll be able to see some more information about the individual CAT communities. You can select the one of your choice. You can select different ones, whatever works best for you. When you indicate yes, and this one on here, what you are indicating is you would like more information about this residential CAT community. This does not automatically sign you up. You'll be getting more communication from K-State First, our partners with the CAT communities, and they will help you get signed up for that individual CAT community. So just be aware that that is a two-step process. We also have some information about specialty housing options. As Whitney mentioned, our Smurthwaite Leadership Scholarship House, we have our honors housing, and then we also have gender inclusive housing. So if you need gender inclusive housing or you'd like to be an ally for some gender inclusive housing, please click that. We'll be back in touch with you with some more information on what we can do to best serve you. We're going to ask you to select a meal plan. This is a required answer. You won't be able to click the next button without selecting a specific meal plan. So the all access or the weekly 12, it has it laid out here, the differences there. This is where you would add the $300 dining dollars that Whitney spoke about. It's going to default to no, so you would just select yes on that. And if you have any special dietary needs, you have a gluten intolerance or you have special dietary needs, you can click this and one of our registered dietitians will contact you and we will set up a specific meal plan just for you on that. This is where you will enter that roommate information. On December 7th, I just recommend ignore this page. Don't waste the time to enter the roommate information on December 7th. You're gonna wanna come back later and enter that information. And I'll show you exactly how to do that here in just a little bit. And then your choose your experience profile. This is what's going to show to people if they are selecting, if you are in a room and there's an open space, this is what people would see about you. Your age, they would show you your major, whether or not you smoke, and whether or not you're okay living with a smoker. So these are going to default to no and yes. You don't need to change those, but you can absolutely. And you do have the option here if you would like to only say, oh, I only want my name to display. I don't want you to see my age or major, things like that. You can select this. Just know that that's really going to limit what you are or aren't be able to see and help pair people up in there. On this, the information disclosure, this is who can we as Housing and Dining Services talk to about your account. So a lot of times people are listing parents, legal guardians, or just it can be any support person. So it can't just be mom, it needs to be Nancy and her last name. So we need very specific names, but that's who you're going to list in those. You can list up to 3. This can change 100 times a day if you want. On December 7th, we recommend just leaving it as the I do not consent and hitting next, and then editing it in the contract, and we'll show you how to do that. This is the terms and conditions, and we recommend, like I said, make sure you're reading those sample terms and conditions ahead of time. There are very important information in here. It is a legally binding document, and so we want you to make sure you know what's going on. I am going to stop right here and make sure that people know this termination section in 18 is very important that you understand this. So if you decide that you are not going to be attending K-State, and or if you have an exemption and you'll be living off campus and need to cancel your contract, you need to cancel the contract no later than Saturday, June 1 of 2024. And if you do, then you'll get a full refund of your initial payment. If you do not cancel it by June 1st and you cancel it after June 1st, but before the contract starts, there will be a $200 cancellation fee. So just being aware of that. This is also an academic year-long contract. So when you move in the fall, it goes until May of 2025. So if you approach our office in October and you say, I want to go to a fraternity complex or a fraternity house at this point, our contract cancellation coordinator will meet you, but we will talk through what that would mean for you financially. It could be a early termination fee up to 50% of the remainder of the contract through May. So just be aware of that. We want to make sure that you understand what you're signing. If you have questions, please call us. We're more than happy to help. At the bottom of that page, you're going to select that you have read and understand that the Residence Hall Handbook is a part of this contract. There's a lot of policies and procedures in there. We didn't want to list them all in the terms and the conditions. And then you're just saying, I understand that I have read this and I am agreeing to this. And then we're required to ask you the felony question. Have you ever entered a guilty plea or an Alford plea? So fortunately, most of you will be able to answer no. And when you click I agree, you are submitting the terms and conditions of that contract. This is just a review of what you've entered in. Again, all of this can change. This is just kind of a quick overview of what you have entered. You can go ahead and click next. And for most people, this is what you're going to see on the final page. So it will say the pay $230 now, and it will take you over to our CashNet, which is our payment portal on there. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Let's see if I can get that moved over. I apologize. Olivia, can you change my amount with contract and app fee exempt status, please? Oh, it's coming up on the other page, sorry. We'll just do it down here. So once you have this, you'll be able to see, you'll pay the $230 now. It will take you to this CashNet page where you'll enter your credit card number and your card holder information. So on December 7th, make sure you have whatever credit card you'd like to use. Make sure you have it in hand if you don't have that number memorized, just so that you have it ready to go. And then it's a little bit of a glitch, a known glitch. You will enter the security code and you'll hit next, and this error will pop up and say, hey, you didn't enter this. You did. If you wait for about 3 seconds, it'll go on automatically. So please don't worry about if you see this particular error. And then at the end, it will go to this page and you'll be able to click the submit the payment on there. So that is that piece. And then I'm going to refresh this, hopefully, on there. And could be what it looks like going through the process on December 7th. We can go through very quickly. Going through the next page. Oh, sorry, Olivia. I apologize. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. All right. What I'm going to do here, let me stop that share. Whitney, can you take that off here really quick and bring it back to the portal? And then while I get it set up for the edit piece of it. Okay. Apologize on that. we'll get this information in here. Okay. Thank you for your patience while we tricked the system into thinking that I made that payment on there. Got this. Okay, we are going to reshare this screen. Thank you everyone for your patience. I'm so sorry about that. Whitney, can you see the resident portal again? Okay. So once you select, finish the contract, we want you to come back to this home page and we want you to verify that you see residential contract completed on this date and time. Once you know that that is done and you see that completed date, go ahead on December 7th, go ahead and just hit log out and get out of the way. And on the next day you can come in, or later on that evening even, you can come back in. When you do come back in, down here, you'll see this edit contract option. So you'll just click on that and you can click on the housing and meal plan options, and hopefully these pages look familiar. It's exactly what you did. And you can say, I don't want the all access. I would like the weekly 12 meal plan, and you would just save your changes. And it's as simple as that. You can purchase dining dollars here. You can say, I want an additional 500 or 300. You would agree to it and purchasing the selected amount on that. We'll let that process through. Here's where you can edit your roommate preferences. So again, after you've submitted that contract, if you want to come in and you say, you would need to know the Wildcat ID number of the person that you're wanting to add. So if I were to go ahead and just type it in, and then you hit the plus sign, and you can see that I've added myself. I am an unconfirmed roommate at this point. What that means is I've preferenced that person, but that person has not preferenced me. So Olivia, can you go ahead and put in that information for me? Okay, I'm going to hit refresh. On that one. Okay, now that the other person has confirmed it, you'll see that it is confirmed. And so when you are getting ready to do that room selection, you are going to need to see that confirmed option for them to be pulled in. There is another option here, and we'll cover this more in April, but this just shows that Kathy has not yet done the contract. She does not have a completed contract. So that just helps you understand the status and whether or not you need to touch base with any of those people. CAT community options, you can select yes here, and you can add or select or change, or you can change your mind and say no at that point. And then this is the very important information disclosure. We want you to come in. If you want to be able to talk to us, we need to be able to see that specific name here on that information. And we need to make sure that you hit save changes on that. So the last thing I want to show you is, again, that June 1st cancellation deadline. If you do want to cancel the contract, how you do that is you would come in here, you would select the cancel contract button. You would understand that you are doing a cancellation of that contract, and you would select the reason that you are not attending. Sometimes there's an additional questions, and you would cancel the contract, and it is as simple as that. And so we just want to make sure that it's a simple and convenient process for you on that. If you have any questions about any of that, please let us know. We're more than happy to walk through any of that. And then, as you can see, you'll see the confirmation that it has officially been canceled on there. So that is what I have. Whitney, I will turn it back over to you.
All right, so I'm going to reshare my screen here real quickly. So what I wanted to highlight in the last bit of time that we have with you this evening is some things to keep in mind as you're completing the contract. So I know that some responses have already been sent in the Q&A, or maybe in the comments on Facebook Live related to this, but want to reiterate this for you. So first are some contract tips. So prior to the contracts going live, you should log in and confirm your EID, which is your username and password. So your EID is different from your WID or WID. Your EID is a username, your WID is a student ID number, and it starts with 8 and is 9 digits. So if you have not yet set up your EID, you can do that by going to this link here, eid.k-state.edu. I forgot to mention this earlier, but do want to make sure to mention it now, that you will not be able to complete these processes until you have been admitted to K-State. So if you're trying to confirm your EID, but you haven't yet been admitted to K-State, or you're trying to log into the resident portal and it's not working, it may either be because you don't have an EID and password set up, or that you have not yet been admitted to the university. So keep that in mind. If you have questions about that, please reach out to us at the contact information on the bottom of your screen here, and we can help talk through that with you. Another tip related to that is if you go ahead and set up your EID and password and confirm it, you can go in and submit the housing information request form now. One that helps you make sure that your EID and password are set up before the contract goes live, so you're ready to log in quickly when it goes live on December 7th at 3:00 p.m. Central Time. That also has you complete essentially the first page of the housing contract, so that demographic information that you're filling out, you're completing when you're doing that housing information request form. So when you log in to do the remainder of that contract, essentially that piece has already been done and you can move forward more quickly. If you are logging in now, that is the only screen that you're going to be able to see. You're not going to be able to see the other screens that Kathy showed in the demo. So keep that in mind. Excuse me. We do also have a sample contract on our website that was just updated here right before the webinar began, and we can drop that in the link to that in the chat as well, so you can review that sample contract before you submit on December 7th or after that when you are completing it, so you can read through those terms and conditions ahead of time and then submit the contract when you're ready to do so. And then the last contract tip is be patient. Click on links only one at a time. The resident portal overall is going to have thousands of students in it, especially immediately when it opens on December 7th at 3:00 p.m. So it is going to be running a bit slowly once that goes live. So be patient. Again, click on those links only one time so that there's time for that to catch up. And then a couple of reminders for you. So again, I said this earlier, but you're not going to submit any building or room preferences. You're going to submit the contract. That's a binding agreement, as Kathy mentioned, and that essentially reserves your space on campus, puts you in line for when your room selection is going to occur in that third step that I showed you at the beginning of the webinar. And then you will actually go in and select your space, again, based on what's available at the time that you go in and select your room. You can also edit your contract. So that's going to be things like if you have not yet identified a roommate by the time you submit your contract and you want to go and add that, or you want to change your meal plan or make other edits to that, you can edit your contract until July 1st. And when you make edits to that contract, it's not going to affect your place in line for room selection. So if you go in, make edits, it's not going to change anything for you there. So those are some important things to keep in mind as you are completing that contract so you can do so efficiently and effectively. And then we did just want to highlight for you to save the date, because our room selection webinar is going to be on Tuesday, April 9th. So similar to this evening where we walked you through the contract and gave you all of this information that you need to know as you're completing the contract, we will show you how to select your room, what it's going to look like, what to expect when room selection goes live for you. So you'll have more information that will come to you kind of later in the spring semester as we get closer to that April 9th date. But just put that on your calendar to save that. It'll be again in the evening, and we'll share more details about that as we get closer. Oh, I want to back up real quick for 1 second, because there are a couple of things that were coming up in the chat that I wanted to make sure we covered. So actually I'm going to back up here so it's not confusing. As a couple of more reminders about the information about the contract that's important for you to know. So there is not a deadline for you to submit your contract, or not. However, because of the way that we have this process set up, the sooner that you do the contract, the better, so that you can get maybe a more preferred place in line for that room selection time. I talked very early on about the exemption process. If you're going to be doing putting in an exemption request and not doing a housing contract, I just want you to know, or if you are doing a housing contract, it's important for you to know that on April 1st, an enrollment hold is going to go on your account if you have not done either the housing contract or been approved for an exemption request. And why that is important is because you're not going to be able to enroll for classes, and you don't have this information quite yet, but you're not also not going to be able to enroll in any of the orientation related activities that you would be doing. So part of that would be enrolling in your classes, other things as well. So while there's not a hard deadline for you to complete these things, it is important to do so, especially before April 1st, so that you're able to enroll in classes when you would like to do so. All right, so I think that is the last piece. I just, especially for that, after we move through the housing contract, we're going to go into that step 2 where you're exploring your different options. Follow us on our different social media accounts, so Facebook, Instagram, and then we have various things on YouTube that we will feature. So follow us there, because we're going to do those community highlights. There's going to be more information put out about selecting spaces and being able to create that preference list for yourself. So follow us there. And now we are going to open in the last about 7 minutes to questions that you may have. So continue to drop those in the Q&A or in the Facebook comments. And if we see some common questions that are popping up, we're going to answer them live between both Kathy and myself.
Whitney, we do have a couple of questions. Are you okay if I share my screen really quick?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the questions that came up is, where would you be able to find the sample terms and conditions at this point? What a great question. If you are able, on the Housing and Dining Services homepage, on that main page, if you are scrolling down, you'll see the link here for the resident portal, the Explore Your Options first year residency information. Here's that sample residential contract. There's also a sample contract down here. If you are in your resident portal, you're able to click on this sample resident contract right here. You can click on it. It will open as a PDF, and this is exactly what it will look like. And if you scroll down, you'll be able to see the terms and conditions of that contract on there. So that is a question. The other question that came up, and I apologize for the confusion on that, is on December 7th, the website from 12 to 5 will look different, but the contract will go live on December 7th at 3 p.m. So you can log in on at 1 p.m. and you'll just see a different portal. You'll see that shortened portal, but you will not be able to do the contract until 3 p.m. This is what it will look like until 12 p.m. This is what it will look like after 5 p.m. Otherwise, it'll be that shortened contract. So that came in. The other question that came in is the explore your options. We were waiting on some Board of Regents updates, and so we anticipate that that will be live starting tomorrow, hopefully by noon. We are doing just the final last details on those, so that will be up and running here within the next 24 hours is the goal. And so if you have any questions on that, please just let us know. Olivia, those that have been answering the questions, do you see any additional? There is a, can you explain the CAT community one more time? Absolutely. So the CAT community process is if you are on the K-State Housing and Dining Services homepage and you type in K-State first, they have a great website here. So the CAT community process, it is a group of 22 students, and the whole goal of this program is when you come to K-State, you may not know anyone, or you may know just a few people. And so this program helps you get connected with other students that have the same interests. So you're going to be in 3 classes together with these particular students. You might be 22 of you might be in a larger class of 60 in one of them. You might be in a class of 50, but all 22. But then there's that connections course where you are just with your specific group and your upper class mentor and your faculty mentor, and you'll be able to get connected. So it is just a way, if you are looking to get involved in K-State and really get connected and get some academic credits out within an interest area, we just highly recommend it. There's for an example, there's an architectural AP design CAT community. You wouldn't have seen that on the list because I didn't pick the architecture major, but that is just a great way. And most students that are AP design majors that are first year, most students are involved in that. So it is just a great way to be involved. And we just want to point out there's residential CAT communities, which is what we talked about here. These are in CAT communities where the groups live in a particular area on campus, so close proximity. There are also CAT communities that are not tied to a residential space, and there are quite a few more of those. So we just recommend maybe a residential one isn't right for you, but go ahead and look and see if any of the others might be a good fit for you on that.
One of the questions that I'm seeing is, and I haven't seen a lot of them, but just to make sure to cover it, is related to the honors housing. So a couple of different questions. There isn't quite as much urgency related to completing the honors housing application as completing the housing contract. You will have to, regardless, complete a housing contract in order to move forward to be considered for honors housing. So you have some time to complete that. The priority application deadline for honors housing, as well as for the Smurthwaite Scholarship and Leadership House, is March 31st. So you have quite a bit of time after that December 7th housing contract opening date. And if you would like to participate in a CAT community, a residential CAT community, you will not be able to also be in either the Smurthwaite Scholarship and Leadership House or honors housing, as those aren't located in those particular buildings and spaces. So the CAT communities are specific to either within one of the buildings or the communities on either side of housing on campus.
Whitney, I saw a question of what is the urgency of doing the contract on December 7th? Will you be out of housing? Absolutely, we will not be out of housing. We will have housing for every first year student, or every student that wants to live on campus, we will have it. The urgency just comes, that's the first time that you can do it. And so a lot of people try and do it at that time. We will have housing. but we can't guarantee that we will have the exact housing that you might want. So we have a limited number of 2x2 suites. We have a limited number of 2-person suites. Wefald Hall can only hold so many students. And so we will have housing for you, but it may not be your first choice. It may be your second choice. So I would also just like to say, you'll select a space in April, but if it's not working, you'll work with Olivia and our occupancy coordinator throughout the year, and just make sure you're connecting with your RA and your community coordinator and say this housing option isn't working for me, and so that we can get you the resources that you need to make sure that this is a good living environment for you. So just make sure that you always know there are staff available here to help. We can't help if we don't know, so please reach out to your RA, your community coordinator, or the Pittman staff, and we'll do whatever we can to assist.
We have reached the end of our webinar time. It looks like there are several questions that are still outstanding, so we will make sure I'm talking to give us a little bit of time to be able to answer those. The Q&A isn't typically available. We can explore that potentially, but there are FAQs, and all of the information that we shared this evening is on our website. So there are ways to get that information. And again, we're going to be posting the recorded version of this webinar onto our website. So you'll be able to refer back to all the information that we shared as well. And I think that essentially covers everything. If there are questions that we didn't get to answer, or that you have as you move forward, as we get closer to the opening of the housing contract, please reach out to us. Again, that contact information is at the bottom there, but it's housing@ksu.edu. Or 785-532-6453. And you can reach out to us, and we're happy to answer those questions. And if there are some outstanding questions that we're not able to finish before we close out here in just a moment, we will follow up with you and be able to get that information if you have an email associated with your question. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope that this was informative and helped walk you through the process. And again, reach out if you have any questions. We're happy to be here to support and help you.